you and the
round tables,
round tables, yeah, all the fun, liquor, whatever you're going to do for Ryan spying. So we'll try to make this as engaging as possible.
Man, you're tall.
Again, for those who don't know me, my name is Dennis Dayman. I'm the Chief Privacy and Security Officer for a company called Eloqua. I've been in the industry doing email for about 18 years, and a big portion of that actually being the person that was stopping your mail, working for the anti-spam companies. And I've since then switched to the dark side because it pays better. What we wanted to talk a little bit about today is kind of, again, where we stand today with the term deliverability. For a lot of us, right, the term deliverability has been all about what sorts of words you might put in your subject line or in the body of your message, and then again, you know, how relevant was the message to the user, and you know, all these, you know, content pieces, and whether something was blue or black on the coloring, and what sort of font that you used to use. And over time, as technology has changed, we've seen a complete change in the security model around email. Now what we're seeing, obviously, are ISPs and end users and businesses now not only looking at those sorts of things, but not as much, but now looking at the engagement of the user towards that message, meaning, you know, are they clicking on it? If they are, then what are they doing with it? Are they moving it around? Are they forwarding it? You know, all those sorts of things. And like you just saw in the last panel about big data, there's a lot of good information that's available now to anti-spam companies and, again, ISPs to use that information for and against you, if you will. And if you're not doing the proper thing to grab the attention of the end user, then you end up in that bad bucket. So now what we're moving towards is from deliverability, in my terms, to something called Deliverability Plus, okay? And that's what our panelists...
Did you trademark that, by the way?
You know what, I was going to buy the domain, actually, but I think somebody already got that one. So what I've done is I've reached out to some of my really, really, you know, good and long-term friends who have been doing this for quite some time, some on the anti-spam side, some on the brand side, and thought we might just have a very quick discussion. So I'm going to start with Sterling. I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll jump into some questions, and then, you know, feel free to be interactive with us today. So, Sterling?
Awesome, thanks. Sterling Bailey, Global Demand Generation Marketing Manager for McAfee. I'm in charge of kind of helping all the field marketing managers around the world for McAfee on the B2B side execute on all their campaigns, all the tactical stuff, from tactical stuff to strategic campaign development, that sort of thing. And quick thing on McAfee, you know, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the Intel Corporation, which is great. And to answer all those questions out there, because I've got 20 so far, we bought Mr. McAfee out of the company back in 1994. He's had zero association with the company for almost 20 years now, yet he's making some very interesting entertainment. So yeah, that's
brand
McAfee.
recognition. Is that good for your brand or bad for your brand?
Good or bad?
Go ahead.
How do I follow that?
I know. That's what I'm thinking. Wow.
My name's Derek Harding. I am the CEO of an Omnicom email agency called Innovyx. As background, I've run an email service provider. I've worked for an ISP. I've worked in deliverability. Now I work on the brand side with clients and agencies.
I am Spencer Kollas, the Global Director of Deliverability for Experian CheetahMail, and apparently I was told that I have to sit in the tallest chair because I'm the tallest guy. I'm not quite sure how that happened. But have been in deliverability for just about 9 or 10 years. Actually started on the brand side before I got into the deliverability side. And as some of my coworkers like to say, I think my nickname is the Grim Reaper because when something goes bad, I usually get called in. But I like to say that as deliverability folks, we're really just liaisons between the brands and the ISPs. So we're just the messenger.
Craig Swerdloff, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company based in New York called LeadSpend, and we provide a service for identifying whether or not email addresses are valid and deliverable or not. And so we get called in when folks like Spencer need help with their clients and deliverability challenges, specifically around data hygiene problems. So yeah, that's us. And of course, I made fun of Andrew Kordick for sitting in the short chair next to somebody tall yesterday, and you know, payback's a bitch apparently.
Well, great, thanks guys. All right, so let's start off with the most basic question today, and let's go with what is engagement to you today, and then if you can a little bit, talk a little bit about kind of what it's been in the past and where we've come over the last couple of years in that, and we'll start with you, Sterling.
All right, cool. Engagement for us at McAfee is traditionally something we suck at, just so you know. We're getting a lot better. This last year has been just a beautiful thing as far as getting a lot better at engagement. And to us, it is establishing that good dialogue with our prospects and our customers. And of course, it's relevant, and that relevancy is based on their digital body language. So if they're a particular prospect, we can see what pages they are visiting on our website. And of course, on the email side, what emails they're clicking through and all that. And then of course, on the customer side, we're really doing better at now looking at, okay, what products do they own? So what are the opportunities for cross-sell and upsell? And then the most important thing and the most difficult thing the hugest thing that we've sucked at is not doing product pitches, because that's what we've done traditionally. So talk about their problem. They're obviously on our website looking at the database security pages for a reason. What is the problem they're trying to solve? So speaking to that, helping them solve that problem, creating that trust with them, and then eventually we'll let the product marketing managers at them. But yeah.
Okay.
This should be interesting for me.
From me, yeah. Well, I
You look like you're about to drop some kind of bomb or something on us here.
No, I'm thinking about how exactly to answer the question of what is engagement. Engagement has been measured forever at a brand level, usually through surveys about how interested are you in a company, how much do you care about their products, how involved are you with them. I think when we get to email, we inevitably end up using proxies for engagement, and the typical ones are open rate and click-through rate, unsubscription rate, complaint rate, that kind of stuff. I think those are pretty poor proxies for engagement. And I think sometimes what I've been seeing in recent years is companies trying to cross streams between their brand engagement and their email engagement. That is, are these people interacting with us on our website? Are they interacting with us socially? And if they are, how should that affect our email? How should that affect our engagement with email? And I think you have to think about the two things as having overlap and crossover. I tend to get techie, so I start thinking of Venn diagrams. There's a crossover, there's an intersection between the two things, but they're not the same. And I think once you start crossing the streams inadvisedly, you can get into all kinds of deliverability issues. And I've seen enterprises get into that kind of trouble.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback on that, I mean, one of my big things is when people ask me kind of what is engagement, I want to make sure that we talk about email engagement, right? Because I've sat across the table from a number of customers and they're like, well, we have to keep sending because these are our best customers. You know, they spend the most money at our stores. And I say, okay, but are they looking at your emails? Like, have they opened an email in the last 12 months? No, but they're buying in our stores. They are our best customers. The problem is the Yahoos, the Hotmails, the Gmails, they're only looking at email engagement. They have no idea about all of that other data that you have in that big data store, right? So all they're looking at is your engagement with the email. And so you got to make sure when you're talking about engagement from a deliverability standpoint that you're looking at an email engagement rather than just a brand engagement.
And you're talking more than just opens and clicks, obviously, through an email, because I still find that a lot of brands or a lot of marketers are still using that one as the end-all, be-all, deciding factor.
And I think the problem is we as an industry, that as Derek was saying, it's the proxy because what else do we have right now from a marketer standpoint that we can really look to understand engagement? Right? I mean, opens and clicks and unsubscribes are the best available information that we have, I think, for a lot of systems. So I think as an industry, we need to kind of push to look at all the other things.
Could I drop in one thing?
Yes, of course.
And why do we care about email engagement rate? Do we care, and why should we care? I think that's something we should come back to, but I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah, so I agree with everything that's been said. I think, Spencer, what you just said, though, leads to some potentially dangerous assumptions and actions by marketers, which is if you forget about engagement in the other channels outside of email, then you tend to want to say, maybe we should throw away these perfectly good deliverable email addresses that are our customers, that are just engaging in different ways other than the email channel. And having left ReturnPath a few years ago, I think I started out, sort of coming from this argument from the same perspective, which is if it's not engagement in email, then it's irrelevant from a deliverability perspective, and therefore, we should think about throwing away perfectly good email addresses. But over the last 2 years, I think, thanks to folks like Della, I think I've started to sort of
oh dear God,
move the needle a little bit in my thinking there.
So, and I just want to clarify, I'm not saying that you should throw them out. I'm saying if you start to have deliverability issues, right? If you start to see more bulking or something like that, you have to look at them differently and approach them in a different kind of mentality. And so maybe just doing a reactivation or re-engagement type campaign, but just not sending every single day to the entire list if they're not engaged. It's potentially causing you bulk foldering or something like that.
And at the risk of turning him into an extra panel member, Della does always drop in, if you didn't notice that, if you don't have any deliverability issues.
Right.
That's always in there, and
There's
I think
always a
often
caveat
people
to it,
miss
yeah.
it. And it's really, really important to remember.
I was just going to say, to your point, Spencer, we almost made that mistake. We were looking at our non-engaged people on the email channel, and we almost went that step to, okay, throw them out. And then we stopped and said, well, wait a minute, what about the website behavior? What are as far as social media and our website and time out, put on the brakes, and we did that, thank goodness, because we found there was a bunch of people that were still truly engaged on other channels. So.
Yeah, that should be sort of the last thing on your list to do to improve, deliverability, right? It should be very low on the list. It should be after personalization and segmentation and better content, messaging more often, right? There's a lot of things you can do that are easier and probably more successful than just throwing away good email addresses.
So one thing that I have found very interesting with this whole messaging more often, right? Again, I think most of us have been in this industry for quite a while. I remember when we would talk about if you sent to your list more than once a week, there was email burnout and you were going to lose your entire list, right? And you had to worry about email burnout. Then companies like Groupon and Living Social came around and they sent to their entire list every single day, no matter what. Now, every single marketer thinks that they should be sending every single day because, well, Groupon does it and look at how much money they're making. I think it's important with this whole mail more theory is that you have the relevant information that people want. Just mailing more with the same old, to me, is not a good idea.
It does what?
It does. It breaks the don't be stupid rule.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Well, but the problem is, yes.
Why would you do that?
So Spencer, how much engagement can you read into an open though?
Oh, why would people do it? Because there are these people and they get up on the stage and they say, just mail more.
Don't worry about
and,
testing.
And they put caveats in, but people miss the caveats sometimes. And there's a subtlety, I think, to the message you give, Della, that sometimes gets lost.
Right. So Spencer, to kind of go back to your point, how much engagement can you read into somebody that's sending constantly and just looking at, say, opens and whatnot? I mean, how much of that can you read into that?
So, it's something that I've been thinking about lately because, as I have the iPhone now and I look at my Yahoo Mail, my Gmail on my iPhone, it automatically opens the next one, right? And so that will click as an open. And I actually have registered for a number of different emails that I just want to see how long they'll continue to email me if I never open a message. And sometimes I get pissed off at myself because I hit the delete button on the previous message and then it opens and I delete it right away. And so you almost got to look at, does that really count as an open? Can you count that as an engaged? What are we kind of looking at from all these different things? That's why I think just saying, well, I have one open, okay, again, if you're having delivery issues, sure, you need to look at that a little bit deeper. If you're not, great, keep mailing to them.
Good.
I think it comes back to are you looking at this from a brand engagement standpoint or are you looking at it from a list hygiene standpoint? If you're thinking about brand engagement, I think you do need to look across all the media, all the platforms, all the ways that people are engaging to determine, does this person still care about my brand? Are they still engaged? Are they still involved? But somebody can be highly engaged with your brand, but they may have hit the this is spam button 2 years ago on your email. It may be going into their bulk folder every single time and they never see it and they don't care about it. And that can be harming your deliverability. So the two are two distinct things. So if you're looking at is this email still good? Should I still be mailing to it? Then I think opens and clicks matter. I think if you're looking at brand engagement, you have to look much, much more widely.
In fact, Spencer, I was going to make a point here. You were just talking about, click through the email and then registering it. But you made a point earlier that you should be looking at other things other than just that open or that click through, but maybe going off to other mediums or that's out there, maybe using that type of stuff, right? I mean, is that some of the stuff you guys are working towards, or?
Absolutely. I mean, we're every day we're doing better at looking at the entire digital body language of our entire contact database. It's total opposite of what we were doing, say, a year ago and prior. But yeah, we definitely look at all of the behavior, via our marketing automation tool, Eloqua, and does a great job at giving us that information to see, okay, how much are these people truly engaged? And there are a ton of people that we did find, gosh, what was it, 600,000, something like that, to where literally had not opened an email, had not clicked through, had not visited our website, had not done any activity whatsoever. And at that point, yeah, let's archive those guys.
Right.
And don't do what a major auto manufacturer who will remain nameless did last month, which is to categorize people who had shown activity on the website as email actives when they were trying to clean up problems with being bulked and blocked.
If you just check us Twitter
That's
account,
crossing the streams.
Yeah. You say something? Oh. All right, cool. Hey, Craig, I'd like to talk a little bit about Yahoo
Hey,
and some
Dennis.
of the ISPs. How you doing, man? Good to see you way over there. I want to talk a little about kind of how some of these providers that are out there, whether they're ISPs or anti-spam providers, how they're using some of this information in terms of engagement. We've recently seen that Yahoo has changed some of their ideas around junk foldering. We've seen the same thing with Gmail as well, in terms of important, not important, which I'm still kind of getting used to myself. But those sorts of things. Does that affect engagement statistics that senders normally would see in any sort of platform? That's out there. That's maybe like Return Path or other sorts of products that are out there.
Yeah, so the new CEO of Yahoo was a former Google employee, and one of the first things that she did when she came over to Yahoo was she implemented the policy with the junk folder that images would be disabled automatically within mail sent to the junk folder. So interestingly, there was a whole cottage sort of industry of list managers and high volume email deployers who were, their whole business was predicated on revenue generated from the Yahoo bulk folder, and that is going away. Mm-hmm. It is literally going away overnight, and so now no longer are opens sort of registered when someone just happens to preview or open an email in their Yahoo junk folder. They have to literally press a button saying enable the images or this is not spam before anything will be registered. So you're seeing a tremendous drop-off in clicks and opens on Yahoo Mail.
And would you say that Yahoo itself is, and I guess it really depends on the brand, but if you're looking at some of these new providers that are out there, ISPs, I mean, is Yahoo probably one of the ones that these guys might want to be concerned with, or is it Gmail, or does it even matter anymore today to who they're? Well,
Yahoo tends to be somewhere around 40% of consumer, U.S. consumer email addresses, so it's super important.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, your hands, I mean, is that sort of what you guys are seeing in terms of the amount of domains or targets? What's the word I'm looking for here, Spencer? But in terms of your listing and your top domains, is that what you guys are seeing with your customers? Or I'm seeing some nods here, but not a lot of hands.
How many people would say that Yahoo makes up more than 40% of their overall list?
Just Ryan, huh?
Just Ryan.
Wow.
There's a lot of my clients that work for
Yeah.
How many would say that more than 30%?
Still a good
Okay.
number.
How about Gmail? How many would say Gmail is more than 30%? Interesting.
What'd you say, Ryan?
Some of my other clients, I think it's a balance between Yahoo and Gmail.
Yeah.
Is really what I'm seeing across the ones that we're working with.
Internationally, of course, Hotmail is still huge.
True. Cool. Derek, since you just spoke last, let's talk a bit about one of the fun things here. And I know that Dell is sitting over there, so I'm going to throw the grenade right now. Let's talk a bit about long-term inactives, and again, how they play in the issue of engagement statistics and stuff these days.
I think when you talk about long-term inactives, we have to get a couple of terms figured out. One is what do we mean by long-term? I think for many marketers, and they look at long-term and they say 12 months is long-term. I know multiple enterprises that look at 48 to 72 months as long-term. I think you also have to And I just lost my train of thought.
Real quick, well, I'll try
Go
to
ahead.
help you out. Do you think the reason why a lot of people are going to the 12 months is because that is kind of the common standard for an email address that has been inactive to turn into a spam trap, and then you start talking about Spam House and all of these other
You
issues?
did just help me out completely. Thank
Got
you.
your back, man.
All right, so I think the other is you have to look at the theory and the practice of list hygiene and list management. Every enterprise I know has had one or more major list hygiene management issues in their past, whether that's yeah, right, and actually that's one of the reasons we're talking with Greg's company right now for a major company. Issues with turning invalid addresses back to being deliverable accidentally and then not having a record of what they should have done. Finding out that they spent 9 months just failing to remove bounces or record bounces, and they didn't realize, and they can't do anything about it now. I think those kinds of issues, when you start looking at 48 to 72 month inactives and you start looking at your deliverability and you realize we're getting problems, we're starting to see low-level bulking, delay to our deployment, you have to say, are these people adding sufficiently to our list, or are they dragging down our deployment and our deliverability elsewhere? And if they are, then maybe we need to find a way to re-engage the ones that are active and remove the ones that aren't. And maybe we have to think about the fact that if they hit the spam button some years back and we never got a feedback loop notice, maybe there was no feedback loop, every time we deliver to that person, the ISP looks at it and goes, you just put something in the bulk folder.
Yeah.
You just spammed again. And that is pulling down our deliverability. And we have to look at how we clean that stuff up.
So one conversation that I've had with a number of people as of late is the argument kind of spend more. Well, you know, who is Spam House or the ISPs to say that we can't market our customers? These people signed up, right? I mean, and I think the problem is email as a marketing channel goes against every other theory for every other marketing channel there is. If you look at TV, radio, print, the more you send, the better it is for that distribution channel. The Postal Service wants you to send as much crap as possible because they're trying to stay in business, right? But with email, you have companies like Yahoo and Gmail where it is a cost center. It's not a revenue generator for them. And so the more stuff that they have to store on their servers, that's the bigger problem. So they're actually trying to reduce the amount of mail that come into their systems. And so that's why I think engagement has come into play and all of these spam buttons and Spam House and all of these different things. And I know it's tough as we as marketers have to kind of look at it. And again, I'm the liaison. I'm just a messenger. But from an ISP standpoint, that's the way they look at it. And so understanding all of these different things is what will allow us to be more successful.
By the way, it's interesting because we talk about the ISPs looking at it as a cost center, but reality is they actually place a lot of ads within the web client for email, and they utilize a lot of the data that's generated within email. Yeah. I mean, Gmail, for sure, Google's leveraging data that they're taking out of email marketing conversations to better target advertising across other channels. So, yeah, it's a cost center in terms of the servers and the bandwidth. But at the same time, there is revenue being generated there.
There is. I haven't seen numbers lately, but a few years back, almost all of the major web-based ISPs were saying that it was not a profit maker for them. That may have changed lately. I think they've become much more aggressive in trying to make them profitable. Look at how their postmaster departments have been completely decimated.
One way to get to profitability.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, for many of the major ISPs these days, it's lights are off because the last person out turned them off.
Cool. Sterling, I want to start with you on this question then, because you're the brand up here.
All right.
All right. Are you guys seeing the marketing objectives and I guess, if you will, your deliverability kind of ideas and people and helpful, whether that's outside brands or outside agencies or in-house? Are you guys seeing those objectives fighting with each other, on a regular basis, going, okay, I need this, but you've got to do it this way, or you can't do that? And if you are seeing that, what usually wins and why?
All right, so that's that's a huge thing for us right now. It's a huge battle for us right now. So on the sales side, pressure on the sales side, pressure on the product marketing side to do it the way we've always done it, which is wrong. That one-off, not relevant messaging because I want to do a webcast kind of thing. And please send this to your entire distribution list. That's what they've done traditionally, and obviously if you look at our numbers from that time frame, it was pretty horrific. So right now we're going through this change. It is a battle, but we as the Global Demand Center are kind of taking the step to say, hey, look, we understand what you want to do. We understand your goals, but let's take a step back. Would you rather this much larger conversion rate, that sort of thing? And it makes sense to them. It certainly does, but you do have to just explain it to them every single time. And we probably get the most pressure on the sales side. They're like, okay, this has to happen right now. We've got to push this. It's ended, close to end of Q4 right now, and but we are finding success at stepping back and saying, hey, this, if we want this to be a success, X, Y, Z, we're gonna have to follow these steps, and let's do it smart. Let's segment the list. Let's have different messaging. Let's not just throw one email out there, and let's put it together in an intelligent, automated program in our marketing automation system. So they're figuring it out, but it's a battle.
Curious from the ESP perspective, I mean, how many tickets and stuff like that are you getting where you're kind of going, wait a minute?
Yes.
I'm seeing brands, as you said, exactly what you said. They've got a product launch, it inevitably comes out, okay, we've gone this far into the database, still haven't made our numbers, we need to push to those 72-month people. Yeah, we know our bounce rates were really high. Yeah, we know we hardly got the stuff out with the 48-monthers. We're going 72 because we've got to.
Right. Do it now.
And that works right up until they get a spam house listing, and then the story changes.
And is it just, sorry, and so you're going to say, does everybody know what spam house is, right? Does anybody not know what that is? Okay, just want to make sure. Sorry, go ahead. You're upset. Greg, you were going to say something?
No, Spencer, I was going to say something about the tweet there. But
The cost of ATMs?
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy, actually.
I would actually disagree with that because ATMs allow bank. So if you guys didn't see the tweet from Bob Frady saying the email is a cost center for ISPs is like claiming banks, ATMs is a cost center. The reason why I would disagree with that right off the bat is ATMs actually allowed them to cut a bunch of people from salaries and benefits, so they're actually saving money by putting technology in. So,
that misses the point. The point is it's a gateway, right? So
Yeah.
Gmail is the gateway to the rest of the Google empire, and people keep coming back to their Gmail, and from there they go to other places within Google. So
again, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying.
let's disagree. It's fun.
Yeah, and I mean, Bob has a point, except the very last bit, logical fail. No, it is a cost center to them. In terms of their overall, how their budgeting works. It's a necessary thing, absolutely, but when you have a cost center, you tend to try and drive those costs as low as you can.
Right.
And that's what they do.
Della.
Yeah, my question is, the title of the panel is about deliverability and engagement. Okay, so I have no disagreements with anybody on the panel.
Wait, can we
Tweet that, please.
Can we tweet that? Della just said he had no disagreements.
Okay.
For anybody that's watching it on Ustream.
You missed the key point. I have no disagreements with anybody on the panel about deliverability caused by bad data, right? If you have bad data on your list, it's going to give you deliverability problems. I agree with that 100%, and you should never have bad data. You should practice best practice in list hygiene, everything. The question's about engagement and how that fits in with deliverability. That's the panel. So my question is this, is that frequency drives engagement. Okay, so if you have one brand A sending one email a week with an open rate of 20%, that means 20% of the list will have opened a message in a month. Brand B sends out 2 or 3 emails a week, and their open rate drops to 10 or 15%, but multiply that by 3 or 4, you find that 60% of the list open one message in the time period. Which
You're
list is
assuming
more
that every
engaged?
single person that the same
Yeah.
person isn't opening multiple times.
I look at that. I'm telling you now, I know the number. That's why I'm here and I'm talking about it. I know the number. And it's very hard for any brand that I've ever seen to get much north of 50% of their list opening one message in a year. Those are real numbers. And yet we act as if the people in this room should be striving towards 100% or 90%. Human beings don't behave in that way. And if engagement and deliverability are tied, then frequency and deliverability are tied in a positive way. And I think the Obama campaign showed that multiple.
And that's what I was going to say.
So the
What's
question is,
there?
what do you think about engagement versus deliverability? And how do you drive engagement in order to get better deliverability? That's the question.
Or is it engagement by the user? Because Dell is going to click on everything and change that stat for everyone. I've lost my mic.
ISPs are trying to prevent that kind of gaming because spammers got there ahead of you.
Right.
I feel a little, if I talk about engagement as it relates to deliverability, I feel a little bit like a climate scientist 20 years ago. That I'm not going to touch. It's becoming clear that ISPs are looking at engagement. What is not clear is how much engagement is affecting deliverability today. It's also not entirely clear what they're looking at. What we do know is they're not looking at opens and clicks the way that we do. They're looking at different metrics. We have some hints as to some of the metrics they're looking at. They can tell how long somebody spends reading a message, how much it's open, how long it's open in their browser or their client, that kind of thing. How quickly they delete it, whether they file it or delete it or leave it. Things that we generally have no visibility of. But I have not found anybody who can say engagement rate, less, if your open rate is below this, you will start to have deliverability issues. I've not heard that, I've not seen it. And I don't know that anybody really knows yet. But I suspect, based on what I know from ISPs, what I know of ISPs, they don't talk about or think about legitimate marketers and non-legitimate marketers. They just look at email that's coming in. And they care about, are our users wanting this email or not? And then they start to look at, are they reading it? If they're reading it, then we figure they want it. And if they're not reading it, we figure they don't want it. And they are starting to look at ways to filter out, to hide, to make less important or to sweep messages that users are not engaging with. Engaging with the message, not engaging with the brand.
So Chris Baggett, I promised I would bring SEO into this panel in some way, but so engagement typically is defined by interaction within the email channel, and I think I lost my mic. There we go.
Talk about SEO here, they cut you right off.
Yeah, right. That's the search
That's
summit.
on
It's
Wednesday.
next week or whatever. Yeah. So one thing would be great to see is Google, for example, has a tremendous amount of data on brand interaction in search. Whether it's SEO or paid search, they could look at click-through rate on paid search. They could look at SEO scoring. They could look at time spent on site through Google Analytics. They could look at page views per visit. All really valuable data. Why isn't that data being incorporated into filtering for email?
The
And
lights
when
are
will
on,
it
but
be?
nobody's home.
Sorry, what was that?
The lights are on, but nobody's home.
They've fired everybody that works on the email kind of side of those things and have automated a lot of it.
I'm
And
being facetious.
I think to Derek's point, while we have no concrete, evidence of this is exactly the amount of engagement you need, I think we have the opposite, where I've seen a number of customers where they continue to send to their unengaged users, right, as part of their master file. They start going into the bulk folder or they get blocked. You cut some of those out and you focus on more of those, again, engaged users. You get back into the inbox. So again, it's looking at it's either the negative consequence or the positive consequence, but there is evidence there that they're looking at that. It's just
Right. Good.
We were talking the other week about sort of like it isn't just about engagement; it's also about who's engaging.
Right.
And I just wanted to make this point with the Yahoo Abaca filter, for example. If Della clicks on my email, not so important. He clicks on a lot of email. Whereas someone who might be sort of less engaged with other brands has more weight when it comes to the algorithm.
Yeah. All right. We got 5 more minutes for a little bit? Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
Yeah, hi. So Spencer, this will go back to some of our early morning conversations, but it seems to me, in listening to a lot of things we've talked about at this conference so far, that there has been an evolution in email marketing. And yet, even the algorithms that are being managed by the ISPs, even if they're evolving a bit, are still sort of working off of what we were doing 10 years ago in looking at deliverability and spam reporting and things of that nature. But clearly with the daily deal sites and you know, the much talked about Groupons. Consumers are accepting these increased volumes into their inboxes. And it's very logical to assume that the brand interaction that we're talking about on the previous panel from big data, some of the things that were talked about yesterday, is having an impact on how people interact with them. So you get an email on your iPhone from Amazon, and you might literally go onto your app and buy the title without actually engaging with the email, which I think is a behavior that a lot of people are starting to execute. So my question is, as you've all presented yourselves as liaisons and the messenger, what's the message going back to the ISPs that this channel is evolving and that the market evolution that's taking place is not being kept up with them? And I actually agree 100% with Craig. I think the engagement in the inbox for the web-based client is vitally important for them. And initially they were protecting the inbox because they wanted to protect their networks. But as the internet has opened up and people aren't staying inside of a closed network, a la the original AOL, and everything is sort of operating now in a web-based environment, driving people into that inbox and engaging with their email is a vitally important gateway into their marketplace. And I think as an industry, I think we have failed to educate those gatekeepers at those ISPs about what we're doing and the evolution of our channel. And then we've allowed ourselves to be held hostage by Spamhaus and some of those elements along the way. And we need to figure out as a group, when we come around to something like this, how we're going to take traditional marketing practices that are happening everywhere else in the world and apply them to what's happening here, which is just the maturation of our channel.
I think something that's important to understand, and I do take issue with held hostage. I think that's not a helpful way to think about it. I really don't. I think it turns it into a combative us and them situation that doesn't
And
get
you don't
anyone.
think strategically trying to look at negative data and behave against that isn't something that is stressing our colleagues in this room?
I think people.
That's
The end consumer who's got to make the call, right? The ISPs are, if they don't hear from the consumer they're missing something or not getting something that they want, then they're assuming that they've done right by their customer.
We've talked about this at MOG several times to say, hey, you know what?
It might be an inaccurate assumption, but it's a reality. Where
No.
it still is today.
But what I more wanted to address was your point. I think it's important to understand that the ISPs, the mailbox providers, generally set up their postmaster groups as very separate from the rest of the business. They set them up as independent people who have one goal: to make sure that the email that their users want gets into the inbox and the email their users do not want don't. That's their only goal. They don't care about your marketing objectives, and it's not part of their job. There is no legitimate marketer. Google, Scott Richter, Daily Show. Watch it. Every marketer out there says they're a legitimate marketer. Whether they're selling herbal Viagra or Lexuses, they say they're a legitimate marketer. So from an ISP's point of view, there are no legitimate marketers and there are no illegitimate marketers. There are just marketers.
But Google will, on SEM, prevent certain categories from being messaged to at all. Right?
How do you mean?
They will not allow you to do paid search in certain categories, right? And some of them are very obvious, and some of them aren't. Some of them are things like certain medications or holistic elements.
We need to move on from this one, Jason. So.
Yeah, it's inconsistent.
Morgan, how are we doing on time here?
Maybe some closing thoughts from you, I think, would be kind of good, Dennis, because we're right at the limit. So.
Oh, that's fine. So no, I get Jason's point. I mean, I agree, Jason. I mean, for me as an anti-spammer, I was the bad guy. I'm sorry. I'll buy you a drink later. But I over the years have seen the
Y'all
light.
got that too on tape,
Yeah,
right?
exactly right. I mean, heck, we are.
Thanks,
a company
Eloqua.
now, but no, at MOG and other events, we've been asking that same sort of question as to whether or not this is a one-sided situation when it comes to the analytical data, right? The negative data, the complaints, the hard bounces and whatnot. Where's the "this is not spam" button, right? And we've been trying to push that sort of idea, not because I think it has to be a fair game, but I think it's the right thing to do. it is going to be one of those hard decisions because most ISPs, most anti-spam providers are going to say, well, you know what, these are my users, they're paying me for this protection, and I've got to listen to them and no one else, right? And that's just been the game for a long time. You know, we're using a very old platform. I mean, email is old, believe it or not. It's 30-year-old standard. We never really, if you'd asked me 18 years ago, would we be using the platform today for marketing? I would have said no. So there are some problems, there are some technology issues, and it's just going to take some time. And for a lot of you guys, you're going to have to start speaking up about this yourselves, right? And not to sit on laurels and not say anything. You're going to have to start standing up and say what's on your mind, whether it's negative or positive. But I think you guys are going to have to start fighting yourselves as marketers. So.
Wonderful.
Sorry? Could I add that I think that's very true. I think there's a level of education that's necessary too, on both sides.
Yes.
I think the ISPs need to learn, but I think as marketers we need to understand as well. ISPs don't just look at negative indices. They really don't. They look at other indicators as well. And they start from a premise of all email is allowed unless there are indicators to say otherwise. That's a really good position for us to be in.
That's true.
If we were in the opposite position,
It's a carrot
we'd be
approach first.
in a much worse world of hurt.
Exactly.
So.
Morgan.
Well, we have a wonderful opportunity to continue this discussion, and we're going to be handing out, putting the markers here. But first, thank you guys for taking on this topic. Thank you to our panelists. Always ones that inspires a bit of passion. As we're putting these out, why don't we have the deliverability strategy table right up here. Barry Abel will be refereeing that one. Yes. So email 2017, looking at the future. So this is the continuation of the discussion we had today around evolution.